So most of us apply discrimination. All of us, we apply discrimination in our day-to-day living. I want to go this way or that way. Should I go by auto or a cab? Should I eat this food or the other food? Should I buy this mobile phone or the other mobile phone? This discrimination we apply in our life. If there's no discrimination, the life is miserable. So discrimination is a faculty of mind, and all of us are very good in applying discrimination in our day-to-day living. But where we fail to do apply the discrimination is about the self. Who am I? That discrimination is missing in our life. We know everything in the world, but about ourselves, we don't apply discrimination. This discrimination is called Atma Anatma Viveka. What is self? What is non-self? Nitya Anitya Viveka. What is eternal? What is temporary? So the discrimination, can it be learned? Discrimination can be learned. For example, when you do cooking, you will know how much salt to put. This is the amount of salt. This is the amount of pepper. So everything we know. And how does it know? Because our intellect and mind is trained for that. We have learned it. Discrimination can be learned. And that's how a doctor is able to prescribe right medicine. He has learned it for 5 years and he is able to apply it. Where did we learn the discrimination about our own self? We have not learned. Everything we learned. How to do the cooking, how to drive a car, how to run a business, how to earn money. So we have developed our intellect, our discrimination for a period of time. But when it comes to ourselves, we are not learned anywhere. And when we don't know about ourselves, when we don't apply discrimination about ourselves, this is suffering in life. This suffering is called samsara. So Sri Shankaracharya teaches discrimination about the self in a very systematic manner in Drak Drishya Viveka. So Drak Drishya Viveka is a Prakarana Grantha. What is a Prakarana Grantha? I told you in the last class. Prakarana Grantha is a summarization of teaching of Vedas, Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Sutra. Where Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita talk about 6 things. Jiva, individual consciousness, Jagat, world, Ishvara, Lord, relationship between Jiva and Jagat, Bandha, Moksha, bondage, liberation. The Prakarana take couple of aspects of this and try to simplify and present the subject matter in a way we can understand. Drak Drishya Viveka in one such a Prakarana written by Sri Shankaracharya. So now here there's a dispute whether Shankaracharya wrote it or Vidyaranya, who was the guru of the Vijayanagara Empire, wrote it, or Bharati Tirtha Swamiji of Sringeri wrote it. There are some disputes and question marks. We don't want to get into historical discussion. At this point of time, we'll offer respects to all the 3, Shankara, Adi Shankara, Vidyaranya, and Bharati Tirtha, and then start study of the Prakarana Grantha. First, let us offer our respects to Guru Parampara, Sadashiva Samarambam, Shankaracharya Madhyamam, Asmadacharya Paryantam, Vande Guru Paramparam. Let us offer our respect to Sri Shankaracharya, Shruti Smriti, पुराणानाम आलयम करुणालयम नमामि भगवत्पादम शंकरम लोकशंकरम. गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरु विष्णु गुरुदेवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. This scholars have a debate whether Sri Shankaracharya wrote it, Vidyaranya wrote it, or Bharati Tirtha wrote this text. But all of them, the way this Drigdarshi Viveka is a gem of a book teaching the philosophy of non-duality. So let us respect all of these three acharyas and then go ahead. So discrimination is what is taught in the Drigdarshi Viveka. What kind of discrimination is this? Discrimination between the subject and the object, seer and seen, observer and observed, experiencer and experienced. All our experience have a dualistic, their duality is there. I see a banana, I am the seer, the banana is the object. Seer, seen, duality is there. I eat the banana, there's an experience. The experiencer and experience duality is there. The Vedanta tells us the duality is a cause of suffering. The duality, what we speak of, is not real, it's apparent. We have to find the truth of oneness, non-duality, behind this apparent duality. That is the spiritual journey. So that involves oneness of subject and object. Subject and object duality has to go. The seer seen duality has to go. Observer observed duality has to go. Experiencer experience duality has to go. So that is the subject matter of Drigdarshi Viveka. Now, why this duality has come up? Duality is due to error which you make, adhyasa. For example, I'm sitting in a train. Suddenly I feel like my train is moving. My train is not moving. The next train is moving. The movement of the next train is superimposed on my train. Next train is moving. The movement is superimposed on my train. And this superimposition, even though my train is not moving, I feel my train is moving. The motion of the other train is superimposed on me. Similarly, when you're sitting in a boat, driving a boat, we see trees are running. The trees are moving. In reality, our boat is moving. Our sense organs and the mind can cause a superimposition or adhyasa. This superimposition is cause of confusion and suffering in life when we superimpose the real self, Atma, with the Anatma, the object. How do you do the superimposition? The Atma is the pure consciousness. It's infinite reality, boundless reality. Atma we can compare it like electricity. If there's electricity, the bulb glows. If there's electricity, fan moves. The electricity itself does not blow air. Electricity itself does not give light. Presence of the electricity makes the fan blow and the bulb glow. So this background, electricity, is required for any functioning of any electrical device. Similarly, Atma is like a background. In the presence of Atma, the body, mind, and intellect work. Body, mind, and intellect are like more bulb and fan. They are instruments. They become alive in the presence of Atma. So when they become alive, unlike bulb and electricity, body and mind have the ability to absorb, to reflect some of the consciousness. So the body starts saying, the mind starts saying, I'm the body. Mind starts identifying with the body rather than identifying itself with itself. So this is the adhyasa. The characteristics of the body and mind are superintentional Atma. The characteristic of Atma is superintentional body. So I feel I am alive. I am conscious. Where I am is the body. So body has no ability, no consciousness. Body is inert matter. Similarly, I say that I am born, I grow up, I become old, I die. Where I refers to the Atma. Born, grown up, becoming old, and dying refers to body and mind. If you observe closely in your life, there are two parts to your self. One is unchanging reality and the changing reality. The body, mind, and intellect is changing reality, and when you say I am, is unchanging reality. I was born, I grew up, I became old, I am dying. The I has never changed. That unchanging I is what we call as Atma. And on that unchanging I, the body, mind, and intellect is superimposed. There's a confusion, changing and unchanging. Just like a confusion happens when you're sitting in a train and other train moves. This confusion is called adhyasa, and this confusion is called samsara. How can you remove this confusion? How can you eliminate this confusion? Is it possible? This confusion can be eliminated, fortunately, not by removing the body. I want to remove the body and then see the confusion. No. The confusion can be eliminated through viveka, discrimination, understanding reality as it is. So there are three aspects of I, self, when we deal with the deal. So all of us, when we deal with the world treats us as a husband, wife, man or woman, an engineer or doctor. What world thinks of me is one level of I. But I have a concept of myself. I think I'm happy, I'm unhappy, I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I'm great. So my own concept of me is also another I. But beyond this, there's a real I, which is unchanging. That unchanging I is Atma. What world thinks of me changes. What I think of myself changes. But what I am really does not change. And this is our experience every day. Whenever we refer I, we are not saying, we are not changing it. It doesn't change. I am going, I am coming. Where is I has changed? 10 years back, I am is same. Now also I am is same. But body, mind, and intellect changes. So the I am refers to, I is referring to consciousness, am is representing existence. So existence and consciousness being pointed out by I am. Then why the error happens? Why there's a possibility of error? There are many times we make an error when we don't have a knowledge. I don't have knowledge of cooking. Okay. Then I make an error. Whatever I cook will be not edible. I try to make a soup, it will become sambar. I try to make a sambar, it will become rasam. So like that, an error can happen when there is no knowledge of some subject. Error can happen under situation when I have a knowledge. I have knowledge. Still I can make error. For example, I'm typing something. While typing, that mistake can happen. I have knowledge of typing, I have subject knowledge, but still a mistake can happen. This is error which can happen even if I don't have knowledge. Third situation is our sense organs can create a confusion. Or I see a ghost there. Really, there's no ghost. Our sense organs are giving a feeling of ghost there. What is there? Is a tree. The tree appears like a ghost because of my optical illusion. Error created by sense organs. So all these kinds of errors can be there. These errors are called adhyasa. I can see a rope and I can confuse it as a snake. Error in perception. Then what kind of error is Atma-jnana? Self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is because I don't have knowledge. I'm ignorant about myself. I may be a great engineer, a great doctor, a PhD, maybe expert in subject. I learned the subject, but I have not understood Atma. I have not got Atma-jnana as a subject knowledge of subject. So this is coming because of lack of knowledge. So knowledge, when it applied, it becomes a discrimination. And what kind of knowledge is that? I don't know who am I. I don't know my reality. Nan embudu, nanalla, ideha, mana buddhi, nanalla, Sachidanandatma, Shivananane, Shivoham, Shivoham, Shivoham. I don't have knowledge that I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not the intellect, I'm pure consciousness. That knowledge is not there. Nobody taught me. So that knowledge, just like any other knowledge, can be systematically learned and discrimination can be developed. That's what Drakdasha is about. When we say Jiva, myself, is a complex entity. It's a mixture of self, the consciousness, and non-self, which is the body and mind. Here, the body, mind, and sense organs are inert. They don't have life. They are enlivened by the presence of the Atma. But then I start confusing the body, mind, and intellect as Atma. So I am dying. I have become old. I am unhappy. When the body is superimposed, the body is supposed to put the Atma. Oh, I have become old. I am an old man. So the body is superimposed on Atma. Atma cannot become old. When the mind is superimposed on Atma, I say, I am unhappy. I am happy. Atma is neither happy nor unhappy. It's Ananda Swarupa, bliss. Then I know the subject. I don't know the subject. Don't know the subject. Knowledge and ignorance also is superimposed on Atma. Atma has no knowledge, no ignorance. Atma is of the nature of Jnana Swarupa. This superimposition, because of this superimposition, Jiva plays the role. Jiva says, I am the Karta, I am the doer. I am Bhokta, I am the enjoyer. I am the Jnata, I am the knower. Karta, Bhokta, Jnata, all of them are limited. And this limitation is something not acceptable to me. And because of this limitation, I start suffering in life. What is the solution? Solution is understand non-duality. How can I understand non-duality? How can I say Jivatma is one with Paramatma? How can I discover oneness? So that discovering oneness is called discrimination. How do you do that? The world, there's a variety and multiplicity in the world. So many types of living beings, bacteria, amoeba, virus, elephant, monkey, the mountains, the rivers, so much of variety is there. A variety itself is not a problem. Variety is like a picture. But what will happen? I associate myself with one of the objects in the universe. The object is the body. So body is a part of the universe world. But I say I'm the body and I separate myself from the universe because I'm the conscious being. So that's where the duality develops. And when the duality, that's where the duality is. I am separate from the world. In fact, I cannot be separate from the world. The air you breathe, okay, the light which you see, all are connected. Everything is connected in the world. But I cannot be separate from the world. A wave cannot be separate from the ocean. But if a wave has the illusion of separation, then there's a problem, a notion of separation. And we have to get rid of this notion of separation through jnana. And what happens when there's a separation? Where there's a duality, there's always a fear. Where there's duality, there's always a stress. The notion of separation causes suffering in our life. That suffering is called samsara. Can we live beautifully, peacefully without the notion of separation? How do we do that? The Vedantic teaching is the entire world, so big, so vast, infinite world, can be classified into two aspects. One is living and other is non-living. Jiva and Jada. Is there any third category? Living and non-living. Jiva and Jada. Any other possibilities there? No. So now multiplicity and variety we have collapsed into two types. Jiva and Jada. Which category do I belong? I belong to Jiva category and the world belongs to Jada category. And the table, chair belongs to Jada category. The conscious and matter. The consciousness and matter is the two category which we develop. So infinite variety is collapsed into two types, living and non-living. Chit and Jada. So now, multiplicity has become two. And this we can also say subject and object. Then what is the nature of the subject? What is the nature of Jiva? The essential nature of Jiva or individual or a living being is the consciousness. They're called Chitta. Chit. And essential nature of non-living being is existence. Sat. In reality, Sat is Chit and Chit is Sat. Sat and Chit cannot be separated out. That's why we are speaking of only one reality called Satchidananda, infinite reality. How we cannot separate Chit from Sat? What I'm seeing a pot here. The pot, to see the pot, there should be seer. If the seer is there, not there, the pot is not there. So the pot is dependent on the seer. The Jada, pot is inert, Jada. I know the pot, but pot does not know me. Pot is inert. Jada. So the pot depends on the consciousness, Chaitanya, for recognition. So there's no pot if there's no consciousness. So the consciousness, the independent reality. Then you may come back and raise an objection. So you may not see the pot, but I see the pot. That's why the pot is there. The point is, somebody has to see. The pot has to appear in somebody's consciousness. Otherwise, the pot is not there. Then there's only one reality called consciousness. That is called Satchidananda. Like that, the multiplicity is reduced to duality, and duality is reduced to unicity or oneness. This is the Vedantic process. So I'll give you another example for you to understand. I'm Indian. I'm Kannadiga. I've come from Karnataka. So when I say Kannadiga, I belong to 4 crore Kannadigas who are different from 130 crore Indians. But when I say I'm Indian, I belong to 130 crore, a bigger group. Then if I'm Indian, I'm different from Pakistani or American. There's a difference. But when I say I'm a human being, I belong to one category where a larger whole, all are human beings, Indians, Pakistanis, everybody. Then I say I am a living being. I belong to a category where all living beings are, I am one with all living beings. So like that, we have to go to essential nature. When you go to essential nature, we see the commonness, and that commonness leads us to non-duality. So now let us take the teaching of Tattvamasi, that the word. The essential teaching of Vedas, all Upanishads, is Tattvamasi. Jivatma is one with Paramatma. That is the teaching. That the word. So here, thou means Ishvara, Bhagavan. That is Bhagavan. Tam is Jiva. Now we are confused. How Jiva can be one with Bhagavan? Jiva can be one with Ishvara. How is it possible? Can Jiva and Ishvara be one? How can you realize the Jivatma, Paramatma, Ekatvam? Upanishads say, realize the Jivatma, Paramatma, Ekatvam, will become peaceful. How can I do that? So for that, we have to understand the essential meaning of Tattvamasi. Anything we speak in life has a Rudhartha and Gudhartha. Rudhartha means transaction meaning. Gudhartha means essential meaning. So for example, I say, get me water. I want to drink water. Get me water. Get me water is a transaction. I'll tell somebody, please get me water. So he cannot get water. He'll bring a glass of water. The Rudhartha is get me water. Gudhartha is bring a glass of water. So Rudhartha and Gudhartha, if you just look at the Rudhartha, it doesn't make sense. How can I bring water, you'll say? Similarly, Jiva and Ishvara at the Rudhartha level or transaction level doesn't make sense at all. How can be Jiva with one with Ishvara? Ishvara is all powerful, almighty, all pervading reality. How Jiva can be one with Ishvara? So we have to understand Rudhartha and Gudhartha. For example, when I say I eat banana, I am eating banana. Okay, what is the Rudhartha? Rudhartha, I am eating banana. Banana has a peel. So can I eat banana with a peel? When I say Rudhartha, I eat banana, the meaning is I remove the peel and eat the essence, eat the banana. Gudhartha is the essential meaning. So this in Vedanta is called Vachyartha and Lakshartha. Vachyartha means in the what is communicated, and Lakshartha means what is indicated. So our focus should be on Vachyartha, not Vachyartha, Lakshartha. So what is Tvam? Tvam means Jiva, me. What is me? This body, mind, intellect, everything is me. This, in this Vachyartha, me is a complex entity consisting of two aspects, Jiva and Atma. Jiva is the ego, Atma is the consciousness. So I am really a mixed entity called Jivatma, Jiva plus Atma. But I don't remember, I don't understand, I don't know that I am a Jivatma. So I think I am a Jiva. I forget Atma and live my life. Jiva plus Atma is Jivatma. Now, what it means? Atma is nothing but Sakshi, the witness, the consciousness. Jiva is the Ahankara, ego. I am the body, I am the mind, I am the intellect. So, in essence, Tvam means you have to take it as Jiva Sakshi. The essential meaning of Tvam is the witness, Sakshi, consciousness. What is the essential meaning of Tat? Ishvara. Ishvara means Parama Atma, the Supreme Self. What is the Parama means? Parama means something which has something for which there is no limitation of time and space. Something which is beyond time and space. No limit, not limited by time and space. That Paramatma is Ishvara. So that Ishvara is nothing but Ishvara Sakshi plus Ishvara Ahankara, ego. What is the Ahankara of the ego? What is the Ishvara says? I am all this. I am the mountain, I am the river, I am the sun, I am the moon, I am the stars, I am all pervading reality is the Ahankara of Ishvara. So, Tat means Ishvara Sakshi plus Ishvara Ahankara. Tvam means Jiva Sakshi plus Jiva Ahankara. If you take the Vachyartha, me, Jiva cannot be one with Ishvara. But Lakshyartha, Jiva and Ishvara can be one. How? Ignore the Ahankara of the Jiva, ignore the Ahankara of Ishvara. Jiva says, I am the body, I am the mind, I am the intellect, I am limited. Ishvara says, I am infinite, I am all pervading. So this both aspects, Ahankara part, you remove it. Then what remains is Jiva Sakshi, witness in Jiva and witness in Ishvara. They are one reality. Jiva Sakshi is Ishvara Sakshi. That is the meaning of Tattvamasi. That the word. Jiva Ahankara and Ishvara Ahankara, you ignore it. How can I ignore Jiva Ahankara and Ishvara Ahankara? See, the Ahankara is not essential part of you. Ahankara is a part added to you. So what is essential to is called our essential nature, Swadharma. What is added to us is called Paradharma. For example, the water is cool. The coolness is nature of water. But when we heat, the water becomes hot. The heat does not belong to water. Water becomes heated because of the fire. Similarly, I acquire that what is acquired is non-essential nature. My non-essential nature is Parama. My non-essential nature is ego, body, mind, intellect. Similarly, non-essential nature of Ishvara is nothing but the world. So you can ignore ego, Ahankara, because your Ahankara is not there with you all the time. When you wake up, the Ahankara comes up. When you wake up, the body comes up. When you wake up, the world comes up. Then you say, I am the body. And when you go to deep sleep, there's no Ahankara. There's no world. So Ahankara is not your Sadharma. It is the Paradharma. It's added to you. It's called Upadhi. Similarly, the world appears and disappears. But even when the world disappears, nothing happens to Ishvara. That's why the world is a Upadhi. Maya Upadhi. Focus on the essential, Jiva Sakshi and Ishvara Sakshi, then you are one. So now, Drakdashi Viveka takes the intense focus to Jiva Sakshi. It doesn't worry about Ishvara Sakshi. Because if you discover Jiva Sakshi or discover Ishvara Sakshi. So Drakdashi Viveka focuses on Jiva Sakshi. Who am I? I'll give you another example. Bring me a coconut. So he brings a coconut which is fresh from the tree. There's a husk there. Is this coconut? Yes. Can you remove the husk? Yes. When you remove the husk, there is a shell there. Is this coconut? There's also a coconut. So now they break the coconut. Then what is there inside is the kernel, is the real coconut. The essence is the coconut means what is there inside. But with the shell also is called coconut. With the husk is also called coconut. With the shell also is called coconut. And what is inside also is called coconut. Then what is real coconut? Real coconut is the innermost reality. Similarly, when I say Atma, I am, the body is the husk, outermost layer. The mind is the inner layer. Okay. So the Atma is the innermost essence, which is consciousness. That's about Jiva. Same thing applies to Jiva, Ishvara also. So when you say Tat or Tvam, Tat means Ishvara. Ishvara is covered by Maya, the world. The world is the covering, husk. For me, Jiva, the body is the covering, husk. Then you go inside. Then there's a kernel, shell. The ego is the shell. I am the body is the ego. That is the shell. For the Ishvara, I am the Ishvara, I am the totality is the husk, shell for the Ishvara. Only difference is my ego affects me. Ishvara's ego doesn't affect him. Ishvara is not affected by his ego. Ishvara is the ego. The real coconut is deep inside. Similarly, real Atma is beyond this body, mind, and intellect. So to remind us that the Atma is your innermost nature, beyond your body, mind, and intellect, beyond your Panchakoshas. We are asked to offer coconuts in the temple. Go to the coconut, go to the temple, break the coconut. You keep on breaking the coconut. Hundreds of coconuts you have broken. But without understanding why the coconut is broken. The shell is the ego. The deep inside, this is the Atma. So when you ignore Ahankara of Ishvara, Ahankara of Jiva, which are nothing but Upadi, the essential nature is Sakshi, the witness. Essentially they are one. Another example, take some water in your hands. There is water in the ocean also. The ocean water can take a ship. The water in your hand cannot carry anything. It's limited. But water in your hand and water in the ocean is same. Similarly, when you ignore Ishvara is all powerful, he is carrying the entire world. It's like an ocean. I am like Jiva, limited to handful of water. But reality, the water is same in the ocean and my hand. So the oneness of the, in that sense, Jiva is one with Ishvara. Ignore about the Paradharma. Focus on the Swadharma. Swadharma of Ishvara is Sakshi. Swadharma of Jiva is Sakshi. Focus on that. To give another example, there are 3 glasses of water shown here. And there is a radiating light. This radiating light is called Ishvara or Atma. So that light is there inside, a radiating light is there inside the glass also. And it's reflected in the water of the glass also. So the reflected light is called Chidabhasa. The glass is called body, Jiva is body. The water is the mind. The reflection of Ishvara or Sakshi in the water is called Chidabhasa. This Chidabhasa identifies with the body and says, I am the body. That's called ego. In reality, the light inside the glass and light outside the glass, they are one. The light inside the glass appears to be limited by the glass, but not really limited. Similarly, Atma appears to be limited by body, but Atma is not limited. Ishvara is the Paramatma, the total space. So Jivatma is one with the Paramatma in that sense. Now let us take the first sloka of Dardashi Viveka. Rupam Drashyam Lochanam Drak Tad Drashyam Draktu. I is the seer. I is the seer. seer of form, color, everything. I is the seen and mind is the seer. I is also seer. I is the seer when I see the objective world. When I see this banana, when I see this glass, the glass is seen, I am the seer. Eyes are seer. But is the eye real seer? The presence and the absence of the eye is recognized by the mind. So the mind is the seer. Eyes are seen. So the mind, mind knows, oh, my eyes are not working, I have pain in my eyes, mind knows. So what is happening in the mind is known by Sakshi. There are no thoughts in the mind. Mind is blank. Who knows this? Sakshi, the witness. Then who is the real seer? Real seer is the Sakshi. And we leave the illusion with the illusion that the body is the seer. Body is not a seer. So now first question comes to us. Any spiritual text has to offer a prayer to the Lord, Bhagavan. What we call as a Mangalacharana Shloka. Mangala Shloka is required in any Adhyatmic text. Where is the Mangala Shloka here? Straight away he is speaking of three seers, eyes, mind and Sakshi. The author does not require a Mangalacharana Shloka because he is directly speaking of the Bhagavan, Ishvara in the form of Sakshi. The Lord is the Sakshi. So the Mangalacharana Shloka and teaching has started in the first shloka itself. Sakshi is the Lord. And why Mangalacharana Shloka is required for anywhere? Why Mangala is required? Why any spiritual text starts with the Mangala Shloka? Mangala Shloka is invoking the blessing of Ishvara. Why? Not a single blade of grass moves without the blessing of Ishvara. Ishvara is the totality and the individual. Individual and totality have to work together. Otherwise, it won't work. Then you say, no, how can it be? I am eating banana. I only am eating banana. See, I am eating banana. Where is Ishvara? Ishvara's blessing is not required. Can you eat a banana without the blessing of Ishvara? Where did the banana come from? It came from market. Where did it come to market? It came from the banana plantation. A banana tree provided banana fruit. How did banana tree provide? Banana tree took soil and combined with sunlight and created a banana. Oh, sunlight is required and soil is required. A banana is a product of the totality. The totality is the Ishvara. Without totality, you cannot even eat a banana. No, I am eating banana. See, I am putting banana into my mouth. How did you open your mouth? How did you lift your hand? To lift your hand, some blood has to flow into your hand. Do you know how much blood has to flow? To open your mouth, you need saliva to come. Do you know how saliva is coming? To think, you need a brain. In the brain, connection has to happen between two nerve cells. There are trillions of nerve cells. To make a connection between two, do you know how to make it? Then the entire universe is being operated by a high order intelligence at the individual level, at the universal level. That intelligence is Ishvara. And we have to seek the blessing of Ishvara for us. Because I am undertaking a work. The author is saying I am undertaking work. What work? Writing the Viveka. My individual effort I can put, best effort I can put. But without the blessing of Ishvara, obstacles cannot be removed. So seeking is the blessing of Ishvara for the completion of work. So here the blessing of Ishvara is sought in the form of glorifying Sakshi, the witness. Witness is already he has told about witness. So that's where this is the Mangalacharana sloka itself. So now in this sloka, the author is identifying 3 types of seers. There are 3 types of seers. When I see a glass, when I see a glass, the glass is the scene. Glass is the scene. I am the seer. Why I am the seer? I know there's a glass, but glass does not know I am there. I am the conscious entity. So who is the seer here? My eyes are the seers. When I say eyes, all of the 5 sense organs are coming. Hands, the touch, sound, smell, taste, and form become the seer. And the object seen, object becomes seen. The seer and seen duality comes in picture. So first level of seers is my sense organs. Sense organs doesn't just mean mind, eyes. It can be any sense organ. So seer number 1 is sense organs. So now sense organs can see the object. Object cannot see the sense organs. But the presence and the absence of sense organs is known by the mind. So in mind I can say, oh, my eyes are not functioning, eyes are burning. I'm not able to open my eyes. So the presence and absence of the seer number 1 is known to seer number 2. Seer number 2 is the mind. Oh, there's my eyes are burning, my eyes are red. Who knows? The mind knows. Seer number 2. Mind is the seer, sense organs are the seen. Mind is the drak, sense organs are the drashya. So on the other hand, when I'm seeing the world is seen and sense organs are the seer. The world is drashya and sense organs are drak. Go one step further. The presence and absence or functioning of the mind is known through sakshi. Oh, my mind is not working. Who says so? The mind itself cannot say so, because mind itself cannot know it is not working. The sakshi, the witness, knows the mind is functioning or not functioning. There are no thoughts. In deep sleep, there are no thoughts. Who knows? Sakshi knows. So sakshi is the witness number 3. Sakshi is the seer number 3. So we have 3 seers: seer number 1, 2, and 3. Seer number 1 is the eyes, seer number 2 is the mind, seer number 3 is the sakshi. Who is the real seer here? Who is the real seer here? The sakshi or the witness is the real seer here. The other 2 are seen. But we have an illusion that I am the seen. When I see through the body, body is seen. Body cannot see. The consciousness sees through the body. Sakshi sees through the body. Body is just an instrument. So there's some characteristic you have to understand. The eyes can see the glass, but eyes cannot see themselves. Eyes are the number 1. Eye or sense organ is number 1 seer. Number 1 seer can this object see the drashya object, but eyes cannot see themselves. Eyes can see anything, but eyes cannot see the themselves. So who sees the eyes? Seer number 2. Mind sees the eyes, but mind cannot see itself. Who sees the mind? The sakshi or the witness sees the mind. Sakshi cannot see itself. Sakshi is your atma. So all our life we are searching atmadana. I want to get an experience. How can you get an experience of atmadana? Atma cannot get the experience of itself. Atma is you. Atma get experience of everything else. The eyes can see anything else but itself. The mind can see the eyes, but mind cannot see itself. Sakshi can see the mind, but Sakshi cannot see itself. The seer cannot see itself. The 3 seers are discussed here. Now, why are we discussing here? There is a ignorance, adhyasa, confusion. We are mixing up these 3 seers. You see, I am seeing the glass. Who is I am? The body. Body is not seer. The real seer is Sakshi. I don't know the real seer is Sakshi. I'm mixing up the seer. Adhyas is happening. Body is seen as, body is, seer number 1 becomes real seer. Seer number 1 is not real seer. Seer number 2 is also not real seer. Seer number 3, Sakshi is the real seer. This we don't know. This error has to be cleared. This clearing of the error is called Drakdasya Viveka. So anything, any object, when you see, this, when I say see, seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, all sense organs are included. There's a seer, Drak, and seen, Drashya. There's a split between the subject and object. Subject is separate from the object. The seeing connects the subject and object. So there are certain things you have to remember very clearly about seer and seen. A seer is always different from the seen. Subject is different from the object. If seer is not different from the seeing, you cannot see. If seer is not different from the seeing, this glass I can see because it's separate from me. If the glass is part of me, I cannot see it. The seer has to be separate from the seeing for seeing to happen. The seer subject cannot become seen object. I am the seer, but I cannot be object of seeing. The glass cannot see me. I can see the glass, but glass cannot see me. Object cannot see me. The seer cannot see itself. Eyes can see everything in the world, but eyes cannot see themselves. Similarly, world, objects in the world cannot see themselves. They are not conscious. So now let us have a situation where seer and seen are the only one reality. Can the same object be seer and seen? The same object cannot be seer and seen. If the same object is seer and seen, it's not real seer. For example, the eyes are the seer of the world, okay? But eyes become Drak and world becomes Drashya. The mind becomes the seer of the eyes, that's why mind becomes Drashya. So eyes cannot be seer and seen simultaneously together. If they are, then it's not a seer, it's just an instrument. Seer is aware and seen is inert. The nature of seer is awareness. Nature of object is inertness. So this is called Drakdasya Viveka. We have to understand this in the coming classes. So in this sloka, we are speaking of 3 types of seers. Seer number 1, sense organs. Seer number 2 is the mind. Seer number 3 is the Sakshi. Who is the real seer? Is the Sakshi, or the consciousness is the seer. Seer number 1 is sense organs. Seer number 2 sees the sense organs, but seer number 2 cannot see itself. Seer number 3 sees the seer number 2 and seer number 1. So seer number 3, Sakshi, is the real seer. Other 2 are relative seers. Sakshi is the absolute seer, other 2 are relative seers. So in the further coming, in the next shlokas, we are going to use this discrimination, seer and seen discrimination, to understand the essential nature of seer, myself, is Sakshi. Isolate Sakshi by the process of elimination. So far we have understood there are 3 seers and real seer is the Sakshi. And finally, we recognize the Sakshi is nothing but Brahman. That is the process of Vedanta. With that, I'll conclude today's session.